everybody. Welcome to the Run Selfie Repeat podcast, where we talk about life with a side of running. But right now I'm in my BQ or Bust Project 159 era. And the podcast is back. So you might be watching this on YouTube. Did you know that you can actually watch these episodes back? If you want to watch me try to find my words, you can watch them on YouTube, or of course you can listen to this wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, most likely on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. But there's a couple ways I've been doing this little progress reports, weekly vlogging stuff. So obviously we have the weekly podcast that comes out every single Monday, unless something totally insane happens. They will be coming out every single Monday. Otherwise, you can watch every other day pretty much. The next day, I will post a little recap video of what happened the day prior with my training. And they're fun little daily vlogs. And then this video, this podcast, however you're consuming this media, is really all about just getting into it a little bit more, breaking down the training process, getting into how training works, what my thought process is, how the actual workouts went, what's going through my head, a little bit more about me and the events I'm going to and stuff like that. So this is just kind of like the bigger breakdown of a week. And because I love teaching about running and coaching, because that's what I do now. I'm a running coach. I am the head coach of the Badass Lady Gang. So if you ever want to train with someone and you're looking to see what it's like to train with the Badass Lady Gang, come train with us. A little PSA, our turkey trot's just a couple of weeks away. I think it starts second week of October. That's a really great way to come see what it's like to train with the Badass Lady Gang at a really affordable rate. You don't need to be training for a specific race. You can try to get faster. You can not try to get faster and get stronger mentally. There's so many fun ways that you can set goals with us. We're really about the mental work at the Badass Lady Gang. But the Turkey Trot training experience is open. I believe it's $75 for 8 weeks. You get a weekly coaching call with me where we will be live chatting every single week. I believe our coaching call is Thursdays at 8 o'clock Eastern time. I'm like 80% sure that's what it is. We also you can still sign up for our November half marathon training experience if you are training for a November half marathon and training isn't going the way that you want and you need a little bit more guidance, help, adjustability, stuff like that. Or if you're running a Run Disney race in January, whether it's the marathon, half marathons, challenges, if you're just running a race in January and want coaching, you can still sign up for the Magical Challenges. It's a 16-week training experience. Those coaching calls are... honestly, I don't even know. I can't tell you off the top of my head. I don't have my calendar up in front of me. But it's all listed. If you click the link in my bio or down below in the show notes, you can go to a page that will tell you everything that you need to know. Oftentimes, like when people join the Badass Lady Gang training team, our team is our most you get the most stuff. You get the most coaching when you do the team. A lot of the times people join the team and they're like, I didn't realize how much time I was going to get with you. I didn't know what to expect. We have 6 weekly coaching calls where you are just talking to me, where I'm getting to know you. I'm asking you questions. I'm asking you how your training's going. I'm helping you with the tools, the mental tools that we introduce. I'm adjusting your plan and helping you understand how things work and how we're adjusting things. You get a lot of time with me. You can come to all the coaching calls. You can come to one coaching call. It's a really great way to train. I highly recommend it. So yeah, check out all of our different training resources. What we do with the Badass Lady Gang is very, very different. It's different on purpose. I was so fortunate to train with some incredible people, and I said, what works with that? And then I said, what isn't working? And I'm going to shift everything so that we can really give community support, give people the support that they deserve. I think it's great. I do. I think it's great. So come check it out. We also have running plans and all sorts of other stuff, but that's kind of the bread and butter of what we do nowadays is training, because I'm a running coach. And on these podcasts and in this vlog series that I'm doing, I really like to get to share a little bit more about the why of everything, because I spent years sharing not so great advice and not so great habits that I have and had past tense. And I oftentimes, listen, I will be forthcoming and honest. I try very hard to stay off social media running world. When I see running videos, sometimes I watch them, but for the most part, I click not interested and I don't want to see because I get into a comparison mindset and I live in that, oh my gosh, why am I not getting invited to stuff? Am I still relevant? I tend to go down a not great path. And so for me, it's healthier for me to not have to see anything. But some of the times the stuff that I am seeing, I'm just like, terrible advice because people aren't coaches. They're just sharing their training experience and everyone's sharing how they're overtraining or stuff like that. So my hope is that I can help people understand the why behind stuff so that they can make smarter choices. Even if you're not training with me on the team, doing a training experience, you still are learning about how things work so that when you do see terrible advice out there or you do see content that you compare your training to other people's training, you can understand, oh, I'm just worried that I'm not doing enough or I'm worried about where I am, but I'm going to trust my process. And I know that that's actually not great. That wouldn't be great for me. That might work for them, but it's not, I don't want that for me. And at least this time I know too much. I'm smart. But I know for a lot of my athletes and friends right now, a lot of my marathoners specifically are listening to how far other people are running right now. They're like, oh my gosh, they're running 18 miles this weekend, things like that. I'm only running blank. And I'll ask them, well, how long is it going to take them to run 18 miles? And oftentimes it's the exact same amount of time, maybe off by 10, 15, 20 minutes that they'll be running. But it's still really difficult to separate the fact that people are running so much further, it seems. And then I always have to remind everybody to you have to control what you can control. You have to trust your training and the effort and work that you're doing and putting into stuff, right? Focus on what you can do. Focus on what you will, not what you will do, because that's not necessarily inside of your control, but what you intend to do in the plans that you have and being here right now and doing your best. Focus on that, right? Your long run is not the most important piece of the puzzle. Your weekly volume is important, right? So if you're not able to get in most of your midweek runs because life is hard, work is hard, etc., we want to focus on trying to get some more of that done. How can we put more coins in the coin jar so that we're not just focused on one long run every single week and maybe one other run or two other runs? Everything matters. You can't get the bulk of your mileage from your weekly long run. It all needs to even out. So let's talk a little bit about picking a plan. Some people have been asking me a lot about like coaching and who's coaching me. I'm coaching me. What plan am I using? I'm using one of my plans. I'm actually just like deeply customized a plan for me to do the things that I love to do the most. Repetition pace, which is a very, very spicy, high anaerobic effort level, is something I love to do. I love 200-meter repeats. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily like insanely fast. I'm not like a sprinter, but I do like to run fast, hard, bouncy, snappy for short periods of time in my training blocks. So in the beginning of this training block, I've had a lot of 200-meter repeats. And by a lot, I mean 2 weeks of 200-meter repeats. But remember, I'm in week 2 of this training block, but I have been training for 9 months. Not necessarily like I haven't been thinking about it like training, but I started this in January. In January, I knew I wanted to try to BQ this year or next year. And I started training for that. I started trying to get faster. I did our Badass Lady Gang Get Stronger Faster training experience in the mile, which is always like a January training experience that we have. I started training for 10K stuff, 10K 5-miler stuff in early summer, like late May, early summer. I moved into that realm, but like I have been slowly training since January. So for me, when it came time to pick a plan, I really did have to, I had to modify because my long runs were a little bit further along than where my training plans for Badass Lady Gang were at. So I brought them forward a little bit, but I also had to pull myself back a little bit because my instinct is to try to get to 2-hour long runs as fast as possible because I like to run far. But in this heat and humidity that we've had this summer, I actually haven't done very well running in the heat and the humidity. I've felt off. So I've been really gentle with myself and like letting myself in the moment make decisions for myself, knowing that like nothing really matters. I'm not really training for anything. I did want to try to race a race that we have in New York City called the Bronx 10 Miler. So in the back of my mind, I was training for that. But then my grandparents passed away, and my grandmother's burial and my grandmother and grandfather's celebration of life is actually the day of that race. So I will be in California for that next weekend. So when I knew that was going to happen, I kind of stopped training. I stopped thinking about that might possibly happen. But I also, based on where I was at, I knew I couldn't race a 10 miler in late September. So I just put all my focus on the race that I'm racing and training for, which is the Philly Half Marathon in November. So how did I pick a plan? I know, one, how my body responds, how this body responds to training. So I know that I can handle 4 days a week of running. So I slowly got myself back to 4 days a week of running before this training plan started. I was for the most of this year running 3 days a week. And then I would say in early summer, I slowly introduced that fourth running day with like a 20-minute run and built that out to like a 40, 50, 60-minute run so that now I'm running 4 days a week. So I knew I wanted to run 4 days a week. I knew in order for me to get 2 speed play days, which I was hoping to get, one snappier anaerobic day, like a repetition pace and then interval pace down the line, and then threshold pace, which is comfortably uncomfortable, more like race pace stuff for a half marathon. In order for me to get both of those speed play sessions in 1 week, I knew I had to get one cycling day for aerobic work. Aerobic is that's the system that you use predominantly for endurance running. It's that zone 2, slow, strong, steady. Yeah, it's important because you get all of these physiological adaptations that help you run and Forrest Gump it. So all of us know what it was like to start running and how we couldn't even like get down the block without stopping to want to crawl into a ball and die. That happens not because you're not fit, though many of us were not fit when we started. It's mostly because you don't have aerobic capacity. So if you think of like a weightlifter, right? A weightlifter might be insanely fit, but they don't have the aerobic capacity to run. There's a lot of physiological benefits that happen, adaptations that happen over time when you run. So mitochondrial density, which mitochondria are like the little powerhouses of your cells. You build more of them so that you can efficiently use energy, capillary development, myoglobin content in your blood. Your heart gets stronger. Your blood changes. Not your blood changes, but you get little adaptations inside of your blood. You're more efficient at using oxygen, right? Hemoglobin content in the humidity when you adapt to that. Lots of stuff happens. Myoglobin content, I think I said that. Lots of stuff happens over time when you're training, but it does take a long period of time. So how do I pick a plan? I pick a plan that has 2 speed play days, 4 running days, 1 cross training day, at least maybe 2, and then prioritizing those 2 to 3 strength training days. That's how I picked a plan. I knew what I could handle, knowing that eventually we're going to get to 5 running days when I start trying to BQ, but that's not for a couple of weeks, like not even a couple of weeks. That's not for months. That probably won't happen until December, January. So how do you pick a plan? It's important to look to see where you are. What have your last 3 weeks of running looked like? You don't want to jump into a plan that jacks your mileage up really high and pushes you into a plan that's asking too much of you. Slowly introducing different stress, right? Different levels of speed work, different intensities, slowly increasing how much that's happening and slowly increasing your weekly volume week after week after week is the goal of training. You don't want a training plan that's just jacking up your mileage or making you run crazy intervals every single week without, like, think frog in a pot. The best way to train is frog in a pot. The frog doesn't know that the water's getting warmer because the water's getting warmer so gradually. If you jump into a jacuzzi that is really, 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 really hot, that's a shock. That's not what we want. That is the anti-training, right? Think of that with training. So that's how you pick a plan. So week 1, last week, right? Week 1 went great. I did everything that I wanted to do. And then looking ahead at week 2, I was able to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do, but I kind of immediately had to shift things around. I'm looking at week 2's I'm looking at week 2's outline because technically I'm in week 2, but I'm like, the way I've been doing this is I'm now in week 3. So I'm realizing we talked about this in the last podcast, but whatever. Hopefully that was interesting and you learned something. All right. Foundation. That's no, we'll get to this. We'll talk about this stuff in a second. Laying out week 2. So my goals were Monday, I wanted to do a 60-minute run. Tuesday, I wanted to do 12 200-meter repeats at repetition pace. Wednesday, I wanted to do strength work and then a bike ride. Thursday, my second speed play day, 4 by a mile at threshold pace with a 3-minute recovery. Friday, I knew I had a Hoka event in the morning. That was possible speed play. And then I knew I had a Peloton ride in the evening, which if you saw the video, chaos. We could talk about it. Saturday, I wanted to do strength work and a possible bike ride. And then Sunday, 90-minute long run. And then I said famously that I probably wasn't going to need a rest day this week. So here's what I actually did. Monday, I ended up doing a 65-minute run, and I was so sore. I was so sore from last week's Saturday or Sunday strength session. I don't remember. Saturday strength session. It's literally right in front of me. Tuesday, I did 12 200-meter repeats at repetition pace, which felt so much more consistent than the week prior. And I also didn't puke. Woot woot. Wednesday, I did a 45-minute strength session. Thursday, I did a 60-minute bike ride. Friday, I did that Hoka event ended up being a 55-minute run and then a 0.86 mile segment challenge. So that was at interval pace. So not necessarily speed work. And then I ended up doing a 50-minute bike ride at that Peloton by Lululemon event. And 30 minutes of that 50-minute bike ride was aerobic. So I did end up getting like a pretty good quality session out of Friday, even though it wasn't running. But that's okay. I cut the Thursday speed session knowing that Friday was probably going to be actually a quality day. Saturday, I actually ended up resting. It ended up being a rest day. And then Sunday, today, was a 90-minute run. So I only got one strength session in this week, which is not ideal. That is something that I'm not stoked about. And that's something that next week, 2 strength training sessions are back to being the priority. So when I think about goals for next week, top of the list is get back to those 2 strength training sessions a week. But otherwise, really happy with how this week turned out. I'm a little bummed that Friday didn't end up being the type of quality session that I wanted in terms of running. I'm fine with it being a bike ride aerobic session. Aerobic meaning heart rate level, really, really high heart rate, interval work, teaching your body how to burn energy efficiently and use oxygen efficiently at a very high heart rate level, being comfortable at a high heart rate level. So I'm happy. Anything's better than nothing, but ideally I would rather it come from running. And I would rather have had that 4 by a mile at threshold pace work, trying to really like start getting myself comfortable at, not comfortable, but confident at race pace at that threshold pace. So that workout's actually just going to move to next week. So we can talk a little bit about week 3 next week, what my plan is or looks like right now. And of course, things might shift. I have to be flexible. You never know what's going to come down the pike. But one of the best things you can do as an athlete is to sit down with your schedule every single Sunday and write down when, where, and why you're doing what after sitting down with your work schedule, your family schedule, looking at the weather, right? Like just planning for possible curveballs, obstacles, things like that. For me, here's what my week will look like. For next week, week 3, 60-minute run and strength work tomorrow. I am getting my tush up early and doing my strength work before my run. And if I don't get my strength work in early, I will be doing it in the afternoon. I don't get to not do my strength work tomorrow. Tuesday, I have that 4 by a mile at threshold pace workout. Wednesday, strength work and cycling. I am letting myself be a little flexible Wednesday and just do cycling because you'll hear in a second. Thursday, I'm going to do hill repeats, 12 by 60 second hill repeats. Hill repeats are a fantastic way to build power, to build strength, to build speed. The amount of impact shifts when you're going uphill. It's actually like a very, very great way to run and prevent injuries because you're not absorbing as much force as you are when you're running on the flat terrain. So hill repeats are great, though you want to be smart on the downhills. Make sure that if you're new to hill repeats, make sure you're walking down those hills and not just pounding down the hills because the force increases when you're going downhill. Friday, I'm flying to California, so that is a rest day. Saturday, ideally, I'd like to do a long run of 1 hour and 40 minutes. Sunday is the day of my grandmother's burial and celebration of life. So if I can get a strength work in, I would like to. Same with if I can get a run in, I would like to. But I'll be okay if I can get a strength work in. I'm hoping we don't leave early and come home late, but we'll see what happens. Movement on really upsetting days like that is always really great. All right. So we talked a little bit about my foundation, right? When we talk about building that house, we kind of talked about this last week. When we think about training for anything, I think building a house is always like a really great analogy. I'm not starting from scratch. I don't need to lay a foundation because I have been running regularly for years, right? I haven't taken a significant break. I have a pretty good base constantly right now. When I started training back in January, I still was in fairly good shape. I stayed relatively active post half Ironman in September. The rest of that year, I ran pretty consistently. I don't think I was in the shape anywhere near that I'm in now, but it felt great. Running was in a great place with me. I was running for fun. I had been running for fun for years, right? It had been a lovely era of really taking care of myself and not training really hard for stuff, training the way I wanted to train for stuff, which was lovely and wonderful. So for a lot of runners, sometimes you want to think foundation wise, can you build a house without a foundation? 100%, but that house isn't going to be strong and resilient, right? It will fall over in heavy winds, right? It can't withstand time. So for me, it's almost like thinking about, I bought a flipper, right? A fixer upper. So I took the house down to the studs. And now what I've been doing is changing the layout and the floor plan to make it work better for what I want, right? That's what I've been doing. I've been taking down walls. We've been reinforcing, right? Like I'm so obsessed when people spend $30,000 or $40,000 on some giant steel beam on HGTV shows when they like want an open room, which one I just like can't wrap my head around the concept of spending that much money to knock down a wall. I get it. And I think it always like looks totally more worthwhile, but like at the time it's just like such an obscene amount of money for a beam, which I understand our engineering and craning it in and whatever. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I highly recommend HGTV shows where they have to where they want one giant open room. And in order to get that, they have to crane in a giant engineered beam. I'm like looking in my room as if I was going to do it in my tiny New York City apartment, which is already open. I have what's called a railroad. So even though my apartment is technically a 2-bedroom, it's like I'm in the second bedroom right now, but there's no wall here. There is a wall and a door here, but in order to like get through this room to my bedroom, you would have to walk through this bedroom. It's like one long room. It's called a railroad for that reason, as if you have to like walk through everything. So this bedroom feels like an extension of the living room. So, but it is nice to like have my own dedicated workspace, because if you remember BQ or Bus way back in the day, your girl lived in a room that was like 6 feet by 8 feet. I lived in it. I worked in it. I didn't have a closet. I've paid my dues here in New York City. I earned my rent stabilized giant apartment. I've been through it. But that's my foundation. I am re-engineering the fixer-upper that I am in to make it work as well as humanly possible. So that's where I'm at right now in this first initial build, right? I have a really strong aerobic base, and now it's a matter of getting faster. How do you get faster? Strength work, building power, and then really targeted speed play. So for me, this first phase is a lot of repetition work and hill repeats, and then threshold pace work as well, right? Building that strength and confidence at that higher effort level, right? Running in those zones, that is threshold. So that's what you want to think about with it. We talked a little bit about, at the top of this, how do you pick a training plan? You want to ask yourself, do I have a foundation? What am I training for? Like, what are the type of training plans that I want? Like, how does that fit my life, and is it realistic? For a lot of my runners, two speed play days a week is not realistic for them. I would rather them just do one and really like check all the boxes. in terms of where I'm at, thinking I'm always kind of keeping BQ Robust in the back of my mind. That's where I want to go. So this build is trying to get me there. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's the build I'm in. I'm in phase 1 of this build in a lot of different, in most training plans for a lot of the athletes that I help, which are newer athletes, first-time athletes, or athletes who are coming off of a break, or maybe they have a good base, but we need to kind of like start to build their weekly mileage back up. Most training plans, if you're coming to this fresh, we want to do base work, and then we want to do short, snappy speed play stuff. Then we want to introduce more like longer reps at threshold pace or marathon pace, and then we want to fine tune and then get to race day. So for me, it's a 3-phase, which is the first phase is short, snappy, and then really trying to get faster and stronger, and with lifting heavy, doing power work, plyometrics, and stuff like that. And then the next phase is going to be focused on interval pace work, which is like really intense, hard efforts, and then more longer threshold pace work. And then the last effort will be fine tuning for race day. So that's what my cycle kind of looks like for anyone who's interested. And if that doesn't make any sense for you, don't worry about it. Yeah, this week kind of had my first big curveball of the training, which is that those 2 events on Friday. I made a video that I was going to share, and I was kind of like, I don't know why this doesn't speak to anything. A lot of the time I see people pushing back on influencers. There is this sense of what I would do for that kind of stuff. And I kind of, first and foremost, I am incredibly lucky, incredibly fortunate. I get to do some incredible things. I have done some bananas things over the last 10 years, and I feel so lucky. And a lot of it was just like, this my life, right? There are definitely some incredible things. But when it comes to product and stuff like that, oftentimes we see influencers getting a bunch of stuff. And I can only speak to my experience. I don't accept a lot of stuff. Like if people email me asking me if I want stuff, I say no. One, I find it incredibly wasteful. There has been a time and a place where I would say yes to everything because it was so cool to get stuff. But like, it's not stuff you want. It's not stuff you would buy for the most part. It's all stuff that like just sits in your apartment, or like you feel guilty about like not wanting anything to do with, and then you have to tell people about it. So for me, I try to be very intentional about what I go to and what I say yes to. I'm also a sucker, like the biggest sucker. I will buy anything that like seems like cool, or like it might make my life better. You should see the amount of cat toys I buy because TikTok I'm just a sucker, and they hate them all. But I am a sucker. I am a sucker for a good ad. I'm a sucker for a cool product. I have a cotton candy maker. So I think for me, like something I'm always keeping in the back of my mind is like, I can't do it to other suckers, like it's just not worth it to me. In terms of influencing and events, it is always cool to get product. It is always cool to get to go to stuff and get shoes and stuff like that. The downside is most of the time stuff doesn't fit you. Most of the time you're running in shoes that are too small or too big because as you know, as just runners, right? Like, when a brand changes a shoe, which size you wear sometimes changes, or even in different models of the same brand, you might be different sizes, right? So every time someone reaches out to you about something, I try my best. I keep like a spreadsheet of like what I know I'm sizes in. So I do my best, but I would say 80% of the time they give me the wrong size shoe. So I have 100,000 shoes in my house, and I think there's 3 pairs that I can wear. Like all the shoes that I wear, I bought myself because everything's in the wrong size. The Hoka event, I told them I wear a men's 9.5, and they gave me a women's 10, and they were too small. So like my feet were going numb. So cool to go to a Hoka event and try out new shoes that I got to keep. I can't wear them. They're too small for me, right? Adidas sent me the new, I don't even know what they're called. They're right behind me. These. They're beautiful. They're stunning. I don't know what they're called. Oh, Ultra Boost. They're the new Ultra Boost, I guess. They're too big. These are too big for me. I can't run in these because they're too big. Same with like Lululemon. Lululemon sent me a pair of shoes to wear to that cycling event. Can't wear them. They're too big. Sorry, pause. I had to put those shoes away. They're too big because the twos are a little bit different than the ones of the Blissfeel, right? They sent me a clothing to wear, but the sports bra is too low cut to wear to a cycling class. My boobs would be all out. It's comfortable to wear around the house, but like it's not really functional for me to wear. And then they sent me 2 pairs of pants that I would never buy for myself because they don't have pockets. I know a lot of people don't like pockets, but I'm a New Yorker. I don't have a car. I oftentimes don't wear a purse. So I need those pockets to like put my phone in, put my keys in, put my sunglasses in. Like that's my purse. So I was like, I won't wear any of this. Now my friends and like people in the Badass Lady Gang, New York City, they love this because we do every few months or every few weeks, we do Kelly's Closet where people come over and they shop Kelly's Closet and they grab whatever fits them and stuff like that. And then I sell stuff. I know a lot of people say, you know, get mad at influencers for selling stuff, but like a lot of the times you're not getting paid for events or for the content that you're making. So I don't know if you know this, but like health insurance isn't something we get. We have to provide for ourselves. My health insurance is $750 a month. So on top of that, like all the equipment I have to buy, insuring Badass Lady Gang, all of our meetups and stuff like that. Like this is a very expensive business. So anything I can do to like make ends meet, I'm going to do. So if I'm selling clothing, like hate me all day long, but like I'm not rolling in cash. I don't know if you know this, but we have a free weekly run club, you know, in a couple cities in the US and in Canada. Like I don't know how you think we're making money off free community runs, but it's a service that we provide because I find it really important to help people connect, right? Mighty Networks, our online community, that costs money, right? I hire people. I employ a lot of people. Like we have a lot of freelancers. I have to make sure that we can make ends meet. So events are amazing. I'm not going to say they're not, but like a bigger part of that is for the Hoka event, they sent me oftentimes you're working with a PR company. You're not working with the brand. You're working with a PR company that the brand has hired for the event or for this particular campaign or whatever. So the PR company reaches back out to me and they send me 2 releases. One is a injury release so that if you get hurt or hit by a car during this event, you can't sue them. And then 2 is an image release, which is like very standard. The image release is saying like, we're going to have photographers there. We're going to use these images for social media. So the 2 things they're always outlining is terms and usage. So where they're going to use them, how long they're able to use them, things like that. Very standard to sign a release, whether you're getting paid for something or not. This release was like you were signing away your name, your likeness, your image, your voice in perpetuity, forever, unlimited usage worldwide. And I was like, hey, I can't sign this. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I hate to be a bother, but like, I can't sign that. I'd love to, like, is it possible that I can send one, or if we can make an alteration to this, because this isn't a partnership. This isn't a paid partnership. Like, first of all, even if you're getting paid for something, you still outline the terms and the usage so that you're not just giving them your name and likeness forever, which I think every single agreement I've ever almost had to sign has it in there first. The amount of influencers who do not have legal look at stuff that they're going to sign boggles my mind. I mean, the amount of people at this event that I talked to who just signed it and were like, well, whatever. I'm like, oh my God, that's not whatever. Because after I said that, you know, like the PR girls were like, well, I know it's just standard and like, we're not going to use you in ads. And I'm like, that's wonderful. And I agree. I'm not the center of the show, but like, unfortunately, this is a legally binding document and I can't sign my rights away regardless of what your intentions are. Like, I've been burned by a brand in a major, major way before. And after that, I learned my lesson. I will never, ever, ever roll over because I think I'm being difficult. I will be difficult. I don't care. I have learned in every single agreement and partnership I've ever been a part of with any brand, the brand doesn't care about you. The brand cares about the brand. So I care about the brand, my brand, me, Badass Lady Gang. And I will advocate for me. It's a lot easier when you have someone like an agent or someone else who can do that for you and do the advocating for you. But unfortunately, I don't have that right now. And like, I have to be, I feel like being a B word, right? Like to be like, unfortunately, like if I can't come, I get it. I can't come. But like, what? I'm going to go to an event and not get paid and wear shoes that are too small for me and give them my name, likeness, and image that they can use it in ads or wherever they want forever. No, thank you, please. Influencers, people, read what you're signing. Do not sign your name and likeness away. It is wild. It is wild. So yeah, but guess what? Lawyers cost money. It costs money to have someone look at stuff. I'm really fortunate and my dad looks at everything, but I do pay him. So even though I'm lucky to have someone in my corner, like I'm still paying that person. So, and oftentimes he can't help me. Like if I'm doing trademarking stuff, I'm really lucky. My dad has gotten very good at almost being my agent and like doing agreements because he's been dealing with agreements in this world for 10 years. And he's taught me so much. So I actually don't need him very much. I can do most of the heavy lifting and then send him the last thing. But it sucks. It sucks having to like be that person who's like, yeah, no, thank you. I'm so sorry. I can't do that. And I won't do that. And this is what I need. And this is what works for me. But influencing is not all it's cracked out to be. You see people going on these beautiful big trips. You're working the entire time. You are framing shots, thinking of storytelling. You don't just like get to sit back and dick around. Now, every once in a while you do, but for the most part, you're spinning the entire trip. You are working the entire trip. You are getting up early. You are staying up late to edit. You are saying no to the cool things that they've created, like have opportunities for you because you have to turn around deliverables. So though I will never say that this is like, oh, it's so much work. This is not the biggest deal in the world. Like this is a circus. And the trips and the cool parts of the perks of the job are perks. 100 million%. 100 million%. But it's mostly, it's a job, you know, like it's not all it's cracked out to be. It is our jobs as influencers when we're doing cool stuff to make it look really cool. You're not seeing the other stuff and the months of negotiating it took to get there and having people tell you you're not worth that much money. I mean, let me tell you, there is nothing more humbling than someone telling you that you are not worth X amount of dollars. Oh, and then on top of that, they don't pay you on time. Like inside of your contracts, you outline the payment structure and when you're going to get paid. And then even then they don't do it. And you're fighting them to get paid for months or weeks. And I remember back when I was living, you know, like paycheck to paycheck, I remember there was one brand and they were going to pay for travel to something. It was like included in my yearly partnership that we had. We had a year-long partnership and they covered travel and stuff like that. And I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had no money. And it took 3 or 4 months to get this trip paid for. It was like a world marathon major. So like hotel, flight, and like, I'm not living large. I am like the most frugal, you know, I didn't even expense everything. It took them so long to pay me back. I didn't have money to pay for that trip, right? The amount I accrued in interest I think it was 5 or 6 months. I think I didn't get paid till summer. And it was like, I spent all that money in the beginning of October. I had accrued enough money and interest that like it broke even. So like I lost money doing that. So like 9 times out of 10, that's what's happening. So it's a job. It's not the worst job in the world, but like it's a job. I don't say this to like, but like when I am sharing events and cool things that I get to do, like I hope everyone understands that it is a payoff. Like it's not just like cool, fun and dandy. Now I will say it's amazing. Like the fun thing about it is you get to meet new people. I've been like, I didn't get to talk to as many people as I wanted to at the Hoka event. There was a lot of newer influencers who are like newer TikTokers. But I did get to connect with a couple of people who I have met already. And it's fun to meet new people and it's fun to see like the new fresh energy that's being brought to the running scene. TikTok has completely like flipped the running influencing scene on its head for a long time. There was a very few of us who were like working running influencers, and we did not represent everyone. So it's cool to now see so many different people like sharing so many different sides of stuff. I will say, I know that I'm not talking to influencers, but I am a normal human being. I am not a celebrity. If you see me out in the world, please feel free to come say hi to me. Please feel free to come have a conversation with me. If you come to Badass Lady Gang New York City, which I go to, I will probably come to you and say hi and introduce myself, but I want to talk to you. Like I've worked very hard to make sure that I don't live on this pedestal, that I'm not a special person. I'm just Kelly. Like I'm just a normal running coach who just loves people. You know, I'm shy, I'm anxious, but like I made Badass Lady Gang because I wanted to make friends. So I make a lot of friends at Badass Lady Gang. So I really do enjoy connecting, and like not connecting in a way that's like you telling me something about me and then we take a selfie and we never see each other again. Like I like meeting people and then seeing them every year and connecting. Like I'm a normal person. I'm not special. I love it when I get to meet new people, and a couple of the newer influencers came up to me and it was so nice to meet them and like chat with them and like hear where they live and hear what their experience in the New York City running scene has been like. Like that's so fun to me. We're all just normal humans. Like I don't buy into the specialness of it all. Like it's just that we're not special. We're just normal people. So come say hi to me. If you see me, come say hi to me. Unless, of course, I've got my hands in front of my mouth and I'm in a conversation where it looks like I'm talking about something really serious. Like we're all human beings. We can read energy and stuff. If I'm having a very, very what seems like a dramatic conversation, maybe don't come say hi to me in that moment. But that conversation will end. Then come say hi to me. Yeah? Cool. All right. Enough about influencing. If you want to know more, ask me. I love talking about all this stuff, and I learned so much over the years, and I've been screwed, and I've acted in ways that I'm not super proud of because I didn't know what I was doing. So I do like talking about it and sharing what I've learned, because for so long I didn't have anyone to help me and I didn't have anyone to share stories with. We were figuring this out as we go because influencing wasn't a thing. I was of the first generation of running influencers. So if anything, it makes me really mad when I find out that influencers aren't asking for what they should have and are kind of getting screwed and paid way less than they should have, especially when I know what I'm making and then I find out what they're making and I'm like, oh my God. Right? We got to lift each other up, and you only know what you know, and I'm here to help. So anyways, reach out. I'm always happy to help. Should we talk about questions? These are I pulled some of the questions that people have been asking on videos on Instagram and TikTok. So let's answer some. What do you do to stay healthy? I just got Achilles tendonitis, but working with an active release therapist and consistent on strengthening hips, etc. But I was working on the same goal as you, and really sad I am injured right now and can't run. I'm hoping active release therapist is a physical therapist and not, I'm hoping therapist means that they have a degree, but I'm assuming they do. I'm just going to assume that you're seeing a physical therapist. How do you stay healthy? If you followed BQ or Bust in any of the former seasons, or you followed me for any period of time, you will know that I was always injured, despite going to physical therapy very regularly. I did not know how to listen to my body. I overexercised. I focused on making content and always chasing goals for content and jobs and not on taking care of myself. So I think one of the biggest things that you can do to stay healthy is to prioritize staying healthy. And that often means making decisions that most people don't want to make, which is pivoting and letting go of a goal after weeks of training if something goes sideways. That means doing all the prehab work that you can to stay healthy, which is strength work regularly, runner-specific functional strength work, making sure that you build your mileage slowly, making sure that you're actively recovering and giving yourself time to recover and absorb your training, making sure that you're doing dynamic warm-ups, making sure that you're working on your running form, so your drills. You will see me all the time talk about, like, don't skip your drills, it's tacky. For me, I do my drills before my speed work. That's a way for me to do it twice a week, but 2 to 3 days a week is a great way to do your drills and to work on your running form. Foam rolling regularly, making sure that you are going to physical therapy if you can, and working to prehab injuries. The best way to prehab injuries is to prehab injuries, right? Like treat injuries is to prehab injuries. And that's with a physical therapist. They look at your imbalances and they target those so that you can make sure that you're running stronger. Making sure that you're not just running for the sake of running all the miles, listening to your body, all that stuff is how you stay healthy. And then making sure that you come back down the mountain. This is something we talk a lot about at Badass Lady Gang. When you train with me, you can't just always train for stuff. You have to, once you go up the mountain, you got to come back down the mountain. And that means losing fitness and allowing yourself to be in a different fitness level and not just constantly running yourself into the ground. That's a really important way to stay healthy. And then I would say, like, last but not least is knowing the difference between pain and soreness, right? Soreness is what happens when you are building fitness. Soreness is what happens when you're strength training and increasing load or doing more, you're introducing different levels of stress. You will be sore because of it. Pain is when I talk about pain, I'm talking about something's wrong. You know when something's wrong. You can feel it. Like something inside of you knows. It says, that's not good. That's not normal. What's that? Listening to that pain. You can't just take a break and let something heal. You also have to rehab that injury. Otherwise, it's going to shift to something else because everything's connected and your gait will be, your gait will change because you will favor that injury and something else will get injured. So making sure that you're being patient, which honestly, it takes years to learn how to be patient. And the only way is through. So not being mad at yourself when you get injured. I'm not saying that injuries don't happen. I will famously always tell people it's not a matter of if you're going to get hurt, it's when. But it is always my goal as a coach to make sure that when that happens, it is the smallest, tiniest, littlest thing. And it's a tiny fire that is very easy to put out and not a forest fire that has huge devastation and is really unpredictable and hard to put out, if that makes sense. Why do you do 200 meters versus 400 meters or 800 meters? So you've been seeing me do 200 meter repeats at repetition pace this week and last week. Why am I doing 200 meters at repetition pace versus 400 or 800? When you're doing something like repetition pace, you really don't want to be doing repetition pace reps for longer than like 2-ish minutes, maybe upwards of 4 minutes based on like when I talk about 2 minutes, I'm talking about my fitness level and most people's fitness levels. So when we're talking about different efforts and what I'm training for, 400 meters or 800 meters, though you can do repetition pace for 400 meters, it's a little intense for where I am. So I'm not going to be doing 400 meter repetition work. I will eventually start doing 400 meters at interval pace and 800 meters at interval pace, but interval pace is a really, really intense effort level, and I'm not going to be doing that until the next phase of training. So that's why right now I'm really working on that top end hard anaerobic 200 meters at repetition pace, small efforts for like 50 something seconds, and then a longer recovery so that when I attack the next interval, it's with really good form. That's why I'm doing 200s right now. Of all the different things people choose to increase their pace, if you could only choose one, which would it be? I made a video about this, so you probably already heard this answer if you follow me on social media, but I like to describe it like a puzzle. You can choose one, but I wouldn't choose one. It's like trying to build a puzzle, but only doing the border. You want to put the puzzle together. So strength work, I think, is the most important piece. If you had to choose one, I would choose strength work. But if you want to get faster, you do need to be doing speed play, but it needs to be targeted speed play. So those two different kind of building pieces are the different effort levels, right? Like the faster effort levels, like repetition pace or interval pace, and then the little bit slower effort levels like marathon pace or threshold pace. They all serve a purpose and they're all different puzzle pieces, but mostly like it's like speed play, weekly volume, running enough in the long runs and things like that, having a really smart training plan, and then strength work. Like all those things need to be happening for you to get faster. Thoughts on swimming as cross training? Incredible. Cross training, I'll say this again. When you hear me talk about cross training, I'm not referring to strength work. Strength work technically is cross training, but I will always refer to strength work as strength work, and it's always my priority. If anything gets cut, the first thing that gets cut is my cycling day most weeks, unless I need one less running day and more low impact aerobic work, and then I will cut a run in favor of a cycling day. But for the most part, not swimming, but like for me, my cycling day gets cut first. and then my second speed play day. But swimming is a really great cross training. Swimming, cycling, elliptical, things like that. It's always ideal when you're working complementary running muscles, and though swimming isn't necessarily working complementary running muscles, you're still working on your lung capacity, and that's a huge piece of the puzzle for running. So swimming is a fantastic way to cross train for running. Lots of questions around the cup I'm drinking out of in a lot of videos. I don't have it next to me, even though I literally just was drinking out of it. You'll often see me drinking out of a giant Costco yogurt container, and it's because that's what I drink my smoothies out of. Smoothies are a really easy way for me to, one, make sure I'm getting enough iron, because I always put lots of spinach in them, and also fiber, but protein. It's an easy way for me to get protein and stuff in immediately after a workout. So you'll often see me in videos drinking out of a Costco container of yogurt, and that's just because it's like the perfect serving size of the amount of smoothie I drink, because I don't like a thick smoothie. I like a really thin, runny smoothie, so there's lots of water in it. It's such a weird, specific question. Should you run when you're sore? What about when it feels like the start of shin splints? I'm taking a week off, but feel stir crazy. I talked about this in the first video of this week. Should you run when you're sore? Only if it doesn't impact your form. If it impacts your form, you probably need an active recovery day. So something like a cycling or a low impact cardio day, swimming, or taking an extra rest day, foam rolling, and making sure that you're doing everything that you can to recover. But if your form is not being influenced by your soreness, it's probably best that you run. Learning how to run strong on tired legs is the name of the game. So it's going to vary from case to case. In terms of what is it when you start to feel like you're getting shin splints, right? That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that voice in the back of your head that says something's wrong. Rest will not cure shin splints. It helps, but you have to rehab shin splints. We want to make sure that you're not increasing your mileage too much, that your shoes aren't causing your shin splints, keeping you on softer surfaces, maybe taking more walking breaks, and so that you can really work on good form, taking quicker reps, things like that, and making sure that you're doing enough strength work will help with all those things, will help with shin splints. And I would highly recommend getting voodoo bands and doing prehab before you run to prehab those shin splints. I would use that muscle floss voodoo band around your calves and shins, and doing some like calf raises and stretching out those calves. How long does it reasonably take to shed 1 minute per mile off of pace? I've been running for a year consistently and just now getting into pace versus just the finish thing. So this was a TikTok question, and I asked her, do you mean conversational pace or do you mean race pace? And she said race pace. I would say 16 weeks. I mean, and granted, this really depends on the person. So this is like I'm not super confident giving this blanket answer, because it's going to depend on where you're at right now and how your training has been going, what your base was like at the beginning of training. It really is going to depend on a lot of things. It also is going to depend on if you are right now, let's say your marathon PR is a 3:30, going from a 3:30 to a 3:20 and going from it, like, the faster you get, the less time, the harder it is to shave off time. It happens a lot faster when you're a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 minute miler. Shaving time off and working in phases, you will see a bigger, you can, this again, case by case, you can see larger chunks of time being dropped. So I would say in a 16-week cycle, you could probably shave a minute per mile off of your pace if you wanted to all out race like a marathon or a half marathon. But again, it has to be targeted training. How do you split your week between running, cross training, strength, and rest? I feel like I answered this. It's personal. I really like cycling. So I try to make sure I'm getting at least one cycling day, which is my cross training day. And then for strength across the board, I really try to make sure everyone's doing 2 strength training days. 3 in the early phases of training is going to be better than 2. So in my first half of the year, I was doing 3 strength training days always, because I wasn't running as much. But now that I'm running a lot more and running hard, making sure that I'm doing 2 strength training days, and it's not destroying my body like it did this week, because I really felt that for like 2 days. But I always tell everybody at least 1 rest day. Most people don't need 1 complete rest day, but I find in terms of like the grander scheme of things, getting into the habit of always giving yourself 1 rest day and being okay with doing nothing is always better in the long run than just always getting used to like having fitness be a way to manage your emotions. Sometimes you need to learn how to feel your feelings, and we tend to use endurance training as a way to not feel our feelings. I'm not talking about everyone, but I do see that a lot. And being okay with eating as much as we need to eat to get ready for long runs and stuff like that on a rest day is important. Being okay with diet culture-y thoughts and learning how to manage those, because we live in a diet culture obsessed world, and making sure you're not restricting on days that you're not working out as much and quote unquote earning your food, which is like so disgusting and repulsive as a concept, but it's out there and it's everywhere. So that's how I split my week, and it's very individual for athletes. I have a lot of athletes who do no cross training, which is very normal. You don't have time, but it really depends. But yeah, this week went really well. I'm bummed I didn't get my second 4 by a mile at threshold pace. My 200 meter repeats went really well. I felt horrible. I felt horrible doing them. I was so unbelievably sore on Monday and Tuesday. And even though I ran well, I was running well, like the runs themselves were really challenging. And then today for my long run, I did not want to run, man. I set my alarm for 4:50 because we're still in like a little bit of a heat moment. I set my alarm for really early, and then my cats woke me up at 4:30 and we're just like in X Games mode. And I ended up feeding them really early and going back to bed. Like I fed them at 5 and went back to bed and like did not set an alarm and allowed myself to wake up at 7 and ate and putzed around until like 9 something. I meant to run at 8 and then I didn't leave until 9. I just didn't want to run. I felt so tired. But I give the same advice to everybody on those days. It's not a matter of if you want to do something. It's a matter of how can I get this done, because I want to do this because it's going to help me in the grander scheme of things. What's the goal and why do I care about my goal? So for me, when I'm in having days like today, I always ask myself, like, do you not want to do this? Because we can do this tomorrow. And it's like, no, I just like feel really tired and I'm just kind of like in a mood. So it's like, great. So it's not a matter of like, I really don't want to do this right now. And like, I'm not going to force myself to do something I don't want to do. 1, 2, getting into the least resistant mind space is really important. So allowing myself, 1, I don't have any kids. I don't have anything that I don't need to be anywhere today until 4:30. So I had all day, right? I'm just working all day. So I had all day. Now I do have heat, so I knew I needed to get out in 2 hours, and the longer I wait, the worse it's going to feel. So I did have that in the back of my mind. But one thing I work on with my athletes is habits and routines. So I tell everybody, don't get dressed until you know you're about to go for a run. Building that routine of this is what I do before I go for a run, that helps you get into a very like ease-filled mindset, your headspace, that headspace that you have that isn't, there's no resistance. You're not fighting things. You're not dragging your feet and stuff like that. You let yourself do what you need to do if you have the luxury of letting yourself do what you need to do. But if you know you need to get out the door, get into go mode, right? Get dressed, do your warm up and go. Don't allow yourself to sit down and get distracted or to like stall. So for me, I did stall, but like once it was kind of like time to run, I got dressed, I did my warm up, and then I was out the door. And then it was a matter of 90 minutes was intimidating today. I'm not going to lie. I was nervous. Last week's long run felt like shit. I just didn't run very well. I think I did 10K in 80 minutes. And today I did a little over 8 miles, like 8.1 miles. So huge shift, right? And it's not like I didn't get a ton of fitness this week that did that. It was just like I felt bad last week. And even though I felt bad today, once I started running, I felt fine. It was a super, honestly, like praise whatever's up there. I felt nothing. It was like a very present run. There were no high highs. There were no low lows. It was just kind of like I was present and working through it. And ease is the word I would use to describe today. So I just focused on 45 minutes. A 45-minute run is much shorter than the 60-minute runs I'm doing normally. So it was like, great, we're just going on a 45-minute run. I have everything I need for 90 minutes, but I'm just focused on 45 minutes. I listened to my favorite music. At 45 minutes, you know, I did the same thing. I forgot everything that just happened and said, great, we're going on a 45-minute run. Like, I know I can run 45 minutes. And so I just focused on from there to 5 minutes at a time. And I focused on, you know, like when I'm getting a water stop at a water fountain, when I'm taking I just focused on the little chunking of things, and it was over before I knew it. And it was like a pretty relatively good run. It was great. I wouldn't say it felt incredible and it was the best thing ever, but like I had a lot of fun. I didn't have a lot of fun, but I enjoyed it. It was hard, right? The end was hard. My hips hurt, but I was pleasantly surprised with the amount of resistance I didn't have to deal with once I was able to get out the door. So giving yourself space to find new things, right? Like it's very easy when you're in a mind space of like, I don't want to do this, to let that carry over into the run and to have a challenging run. Let that go. It's okay to be in a place where you don't always want to do stuff and that you're not like jumping at like out of your skin with joy to do stuff. It's okay to feel tired. It's okay to like be like, I don't want to fucking go for a 90-minute run right now. Right? You just have to come back to the why. Why are you doing this? Why does today matter? What can you do? What does your best look like? And then you just focus on checking things off, right? Doing your warm up, getting out the door, taking a big deep breath, allowing yourself to do whatever you need to do. If I wanted to walk at any point, I was allowed to walk, right? If I wanted to stop and grab water at a water fountain, I was allowed to. If I wanted to just pop into a store and get a Gatorade, I allowed myself to. I didn't, but I did have that, like I had that check-in where at the halfway point I was next to a store and I was like, you want to go get a Gatorade? And I'm like, I'm okay. Okay. But instead at the end of the park, if I want to get a Gatorade, I'm going to pop into that store and get a Gatorade. And then I checked in and I'm like, I actually feel okay. I felt okay with the water stops I took. It was what it was. I didn't film as much today. I kind of knew that if I was pulling out a camera every 10 minutes to talk about what I was feeling, that I ran the risk of allowing myself to ease back into that like mind space. So I did have to make that decision for myself today to like, I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about running. I'm just going to run, which always feels selfish because I know I'm sharing this with everybody, but like, so I'm much better about like prioritizing myself this go around. So like making sure that you're getting into the routine, pre-run routines is really helpful to get out the door. Little helpful hint. Wow, this is really long. I've been talking for an hour. Okay, I'm going to shut up. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was interesting. If not, I'll try better. If you have any questions, you know how to find me. Come train with me. Come do the turkey trot. Check out our training experiences. Check out our training team. We have a lot of fun. Yeah? All right, everybody. Kick ass. Take names. I'll catch you next time.